Hey guys, welcome to the special edition of the Sovereignty Project with James and Dennis, of course. And we're going to be talking about Kurdish independence and the Kurdish national movement. Now, with us today is Golala Arya. She is a graduate student here at George Mason University. She received her undergraduate degree from Michigan State, and she is also a chemistry and biochemistry PhD candidate. She specializes in environmental science and organic chemistry. She is Kurdish. Originally she came from Iran, correct? Northern Iran?
Yep, Kurdistan of Iran. That would be Western Iran.
Okay. And she's lived in Kurdish Turkey, Iraq. She immigrated here as a refugee in September of 1995, and she describes herself as a red-blooded American. Welcome on the show.
Thank you. Hello to everyone.
Hi, we're here to talk with Golala about your petition concerning the situation in Iraq and the Middle East right now with the self-proclaimed Islamic State. What are you hoping to accomplish with this petition?
My hope was to raise global awareness and also urge U.S. and coalition members to boost up the airstrikes in coordination with the Kurdish fighters inside the city of Kobani. They're called People's Protection Unit, or YPG, which is the acronym for the Kurdish version of People's Protection Unit. This actually has started, U.S. has started airstrikes, but it needs to be boosted up. It used to be about 200 a month. It needs to be at least 200 a day. And the second goal is to actually start supplying the YPG fighters inside the city of Kobani. And that started this past Sunday. And that needs to be a continuous thing, not a sporadic one-time deal. It has the airstrikes and the supplying of ammunition to the YPG fighters, 50% of which are women, has helped the Kobani resistance to hold back the ISIS fighters from capturing the city. As a Kurdish American student at George Mason, I took it upon myself to have this petition signing. I'm actually located at the east entrance to Johnson Center, and that would be the entrance across from Planetary Hall. And I will be there through the 28th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'm hoping to get solidarity from all of the students at George Mason and anyone that feels compelled to come and put their signature on this humanitarian cause.
All right. Yeah, so if you guys want to get involved, please do that. We've been out there several times, and we've talked to them. They're really nice people, and we really want to support them. And we were wondering if you could give us kind of a quick overview of the history of the Kurds and more about the situation in Iraq.
It would be a pleasure. Kurdish people are the largest minority in Middle East without their own nation state. We are descendants of the Median Empire prior to Persian Empire. We have been in that region ever since. I could say I'm Kurdish. I could be biased, but ever since the civilization and dawn of agriculture in Middle East, Kurdish map superimposes over the Fertile Crescent between Euphrates and Tigris. We have been in that region for a long time, and unfortunately, our demise of being divided between four countries, which would be Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, started after World War I. We were an autonomous region under Persian Empire and under Ottoman Empire. Once Ottomans collapsed, our region got divided in four parts, and ever since then we have been fighting for autonomy for our nation, and our fight has been in vain, unfortunately. Kurds are a very matriarchal society. We are very proud democracy, and every single time we have allied with West, and unfortunately we have never gained the support that we deserve. Our culture values equality of men and women, which you can see as an example of it. You can see in city of Kobani, half of our fighters resisting against jihadist terrorists are women. We are warriors. We don't lay our guns down and run. If someone is coming to kill us, we take a few of them out with us. And right now, everyone sees that, and we're hoping it would be a turning page for the Kurdish cause and for us to get the help and support that we deserve from U.S. and Western nations and Europe. And I hope that they realize that we're the only nation in the Middle East that they can actually support and not fear any setbacks. We're secular people, pro-democracy, and I can't emphasize enough that we need all the help in that region that we can get.
If we could we get an overview of what the situation is like for the Kurdish people in each of those four regions, Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq?
Sure. I'll start with Iran, since that's the region I was born in. In Iran, we don't have Kurdish schools or Kurdish universities. The main language is Persian, Farsi. So if we want to learn how to write in our native language and read in it, we have to personally take it upon ourselves to get educated in that aspect. We have a few, I think there's only one Kurdish channel in the Iranian side of Kurdistan, limited broadcasting, but it's Islamic regime's propaganda. In Iraq, believe it or not, under Saddam we had more freedom than we did under any of the other regimes, Iran, Turkey, and Syria. Saddam, it was more like a federal system. In the Kurdish side of Iraq, we had Kurdish universities, Kurdish schools. Arabic was the second language, so people could actually get educated in their own native language. In Turkey, it was the worst of all four countries, until about a few years ago when Turkey had dreams of joining European Union. We had no rights in Turkey whatsoever. We were referred to as leftover Ottoman Turks who have not been civilized yet. Our democratically elected members into the parliament would be imprisoned. One of them, Leyla Zana, last name Zana. She was imprisoned for simply, along with her colleagues, for simply saying, we are Kurdish people, we are in this land, we deserve the same rights. There was not even a talk of separatism and trying to split from Turkey. Just for the purpose of saying we're Kurdish, we deserve the same rights, she was imprisoned. Now the situation used to progress toward getting better. Unfortunately, with Erdogan's regime, it's taking a setback. Turkey's active campaign of racial cleansing of Kurds demanded for a political party among the Kurds to rise, which is called PKK, Kurdistan Workers' Party. That party's tactics is no different than other Kurdish political parties, but because Turkey is a member of NATO, they have been enlisted as terrorists on U.S. and European Union's list. But right now, PKK was actually the only political party that helped the Kurds, Yazidis, and Christians run away from Islamists in the Sinjar mountain. And their tactics have different. They're more into diplomacy and trying to talk with Turkish government into reaching a goal of either give us equal citizenship rights or let's talk a different way of coexisting with each other. In Syria, Kurds are not citizens, period. They would not have any identification from the government, no passport. We were just treated as people that lived on that land that shouldn't belong. And talking about land, that we are not invaders of any country's land. We have been residing on those pieces of land for at least 4,000 years. And the only reason they're called Turkish side, Iranian side, Iraqi side, or Syrian side is because of the division after World War I, which was done by British. So unfortunately, we've been dealing with this since 1917, and hopefully during this Kobani resistance and global awareness that Kurdish people are pro-peace, pro-democracy, and secular, we can change that.
So how have the Kurdish people responded specifically to the breakup, so to speak, of the centralized governments in Syria and Iraq, and what's the threat they face now from the Islamic State?
The breakup among Kurds have done one thing. It has increased our patriotic sense of nationalism towards one another, which explains why Kurds are very secular. Among Kurds, we have Sunni Muslims, we have Christians, we have Yazidis, Yazidis are it's almost a mixture of Zoroastrian and Islam and Judaism and Christianity, the newer religions, into one another. We have lots of other minority religions in us, but one thing among Kurds is even our national anthem says, my faith, my religion is my homeland. which implores all of the Kurds to unite with one another. We never refer to one another as Iranian, Iraqi, or Turkish or Syrian. We actually refer to Kurdistan of Iran as Rojhalat, meaning Eastern, and then Kurdistan of Turkey as Northern Kurdistan, Kurdistan of Iraq as Southern Kurdistan, and Kurdistan of Syria as Western. So we refer to ourselves as, oh, I'm Eastern, you're Western, that one's Northern, and so on. So it has only solidified our solidarity among each other, and that helps because once something happens, like with the Iraqi Kurds, which were Yazidis and Christians stuck in the Mount Sinjar, that propelled Kurds from Turkey and Syria and PKK party to actually go help them. And they were the only ones that actually saved the refugees from being slaughtered on top of that mountain. U.S. only had, I think, 3 to 5 strikes trying to stop ISIS jihadists. So if it wasn't other Kurds feeling implored to help their sisters and brothers, there would be disaster worse than what we actually see now.
The other thing I wanted to know was, you have these decentralized groups of Kurds. Now, do you see it realistic to split these territories away from their respective countries, or do you think it would be easier to have one Kurdish stronghold and all the Kurdish people go to that area, or would that? How do you see that? Since those jurisdictions are in 4 different countries, I see it as being more difficult to do that than maybe setting up one big stronghold in northern Iraq. How does that develop, or what do you see there?
It is a tricky situation. Unfortunately, there is no easy fix for it. Among the Kurds, we believe the only reason we don't have one united Kurdistan is because Turkey is a member of NATO. Mm-hmm. Iraq is literally split now. And I can see it in future, seeing Iraq as split into 3 regions: the Kurdish region, and Sunni Iraq, and Shia Iraq. I mean, that country has, unfortunately, the reason I say unfortunately is because so many civilians lost their lives, so much bloodshed. And for me, my dream would be to have one united Kurdistan, secular Kurdistan. If Kurdistan becomes a theocracy, I would rather be within Turkey under a federal system, but a secular system rather than under a under a theocracy. As far as seeing those the other 3 parts of Kurdistan, for me, my hope is, I'm thinking 10 years from now we actually see one united Kurdistan, because the media and West is actually leaning towards us and saying that Kurds deserve having their own homeland. And I don't think having only northern Iraq, the Kurdish region, as one autonomous region, and then everyone else, whoever wants to flock to them, go ahead, because that's our land. We're not going to leave it in Iran, Turkey, or Syria and flock to just 1/4 of it and leave the rest of it behind. That's our livelihood. And like I said, it's a tricky situation. I can be hopeful and say, yes, one united Kurdistan in that region, which would be secular, pro-democratic, and hopefully a beacon of hope and humanity for the region that others can follow. But our main obstacle is Turkey and being a member of NATO. So I hope NATO realizes that Turkey has pan-Islamic dreams of rejuvenating Ottoman Empire, and for the humanity's sake, stop them from racial cleansing of Kurds. So we can have one united Kurdistan that would be promising to West and Middle East as well.
So how would you rate the threat that is posed to Kurdistan from the Islamic State right now? How is the United States working with the Kurdish people, and what more could it be doing?
The threat posed to the Kurdish people by Islamic State is very serious. You can tell by them not giving up on the city of Kobani for the past 41 days. And with jihadists in Islamic State, they're idealists who have made religion, which I think is a personal matter, into an idealist campaign. And the threat is so bad that with taking heavy casualties, they're not giving up on that Kurdish region. If their aim was not annihilation of the Kurdish people, I would think they would give up on besieging the city of Kobani. And with help of U.S., it has helped Kobani resistant push back the jihadists. They actually had succeeded in taking over 50% of the city. The fight was street-to-street, home-to-home battle. And with the airstrikes, Kurdish fighters, YPG fighters, have been able to push jihadists back out of the Kobani. Now YPG has 85% of the city. And we're hoping for total pushback of ISIS and U.S. and coalition ability to annihilate ISIS. And again, I want to emphasize that U.S. and coalition needs to boost up their airstrikes in coordination with the YPG fighters on the ground, and also giving Kurdish fighters ammunition and weaponry to defend themselves. And Kurdish and U.S. help has been tremendous. I mean, it's been a page turner. Had it not been for U.S., that city would have collapsed.
How were the Kurds treated in Iraq before ISIS was a threat? I mean, I didn't really know a whole lot about the Kurds until this whole ISIS threat. Mm-hmm. So could you say that maybe the whole ISIS thing appearing, while fighting them is what we need to be doing, and we need to be fighting them head on? Do you think this whole thing was the good thing that came out of this is that Western countries are finally realizing what the Kurds are going through? Because before ISIS was, after we pulled out of Iraq, you didn't hear anything about Kurds.
I understand. Now you're thinking like a Kurd. We actually, among ourselves, we say, yep, that is the only good thing that came out of this war. World recognition that, yes, Kurdish people, we're about 35 million strong. And now world is recognizing that we are fierce warriors. We don't give up easily on our land, and we're very pro-democracy. We're very pro-equality of men and women. Again, I want to emphasize half of the fighters in Kobani are women, and that is not just for Kobani city. All of our political parties, majority of them, have half of their fighters as women. Kurdish women, again, I'm biased, are strong. We don't take the back seat. If something comes to take us out, we take a few of them out with us. And yeah, I agree with you. That was the only good thing that came out of this conflict, that raised global awareness for the Kurdish cause. We have been yelling on top of our lungs for the whole world to please hear us. We're people that deserve defending. Again, for the main reasons of we love freedom, we're very pro-democracy, and we can be a beacon for humanity and hope in that region. And looks like our cries are being noticed now, and hopefully it will have a positive end.
During when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, and during the
Gulf War.
During the Gulf War, how did the Kurds respond to that? And how did the U.S. promote Kurdish independence, or how much did they emphasize Kurdish nationality during the, I guess you could say, the reconstruction of Iraq, or the insurgency?
Sure. Let's go back. Let's start from the Gulf War. During the first Gulf War, when U.S. pulled out, Kurds were under the assumption, yes, U.S. will be with us till the end. And we read into the media of rise up, fight against Saddam. We did. Unfortunately, we were left behind and slaughtered, and hundreds of thousands. At that time, I was actually in the Iranian side of Kurdistan, and every single Kurdish family in the Kurdish region of Iran had at least 2-3 families from the Iraqi side of Kurdistan in their house for numerous months, because they were refugees. And again, our solidarity among Kurds is very strong. So we did listen to West rise up. We were left behind. And the 2003 as well, same thing, not the same thing happened, but we rose up, and this time we had the coalition and US's help. If you compare northern Iraq with the other parts of Iraq, you see it's actually reviving. It's the safest area for U.S. Army and coalition to reside. I have many Army friends that they say they would love hearing that, oh yeah, you're going to end up in Hawler, Erbil, or Soleimani, any of those cities. So the tide changed, so we're seeing more cooperation and help from West. We're just hoping that it's not temporary and it lasts, so we can start talking about our dreams of autonomy. One thing I want to emphasize is majority of Kurds, I could say about 99% of Kurds love having our own country. And if there's a referendum taken in any of those countries, it would win by a landslide. And again, the problem would be Turkey being a member of NATO. With Iran, also with Islamic regime, it's theocracy. But I don't fear them as much as I do Turkey, because they haven't had an active racial cleansing of Kurdish population. And there is more sympathy among Persian residents, other Iranians towards Kurds, than it is between Turks and Kurdish population of Turkey.
I guess my other thing, this might be a lesser known or a lesser priority for the Kurds. How do you see Russia, or how do you see Vladimir Putin or the Russians in that area? Are they influencing that at all? Are they pushing against Kurdish independence, and how does that push against them?
Okay.
Or if that's even a relevant issue?
At this time, Russia is irrelevant. They're too busy with invading Ukraine and what they did. We have not heard anything from our friends on the ground in Kurdistan as far as Russian, help or lack of, or even interference. They've just taken a backseat to the Kurdish situation, and I guess they just want to see where the chips fall. For previously, Soviet was pro-Kurdish for a while. We actually had a Republic of Mahabad in Kurdistan of Iran, Soviet-backed, but they left Kurds, and our president was hanged in the city, and our republic was demolished by the Islamic regime of Iran. So Russia, crossed them out.
I believe Russia is a supporter of the Assad regime in Syria, which is, I believe at the moment, not controlling any territory which borders the Kurdish area, more caught up in its fight with the Islamic State and other rebel opposition.
That's right. Russia is supporting Assad regime, and but either I'm not aware of, but we have not seen any active support from Russia. Rhetoric, yes, they support him, and you're right. Now, Assad-controlled areas are not bordering the Kurdish region, and basically, Assad has left Kurds as well. He is too busy fighting Islamic State and the other factions, and with us, he is looking at Kurds. Oh, yep, you're fighting against who I'm fighting for right now. I'm not going to deal with you at all. So with that aspect, it's actually a good thing for Kurdish fighters, because then we don't have to fight two fronts. So in this point, Assad, for who he is, has made the right decision of not being against Kurds in this particular fight.
Another thing, too, is you've seen several cases of Americans and Germans, some French and English,
Dutch,
and some Dutch going over, just citizens going over and trying to help ISIS, trying to join the fight. Luckily, those people have been stopped for the most part. I know there's been the recent beheadings were done by a few British citizens, as horrible as that is. Now, would you? I don't know if the State Department will allow this, but would you encourage people from Western countries, including the U.S., to go over and help the fight?
I believe the State Department does allow this, and I said Dutch because I was thinking you're referring to people joining YPG fighters, so I'm not aware of Dutch being among ISIS jihadists. As far as people joining the People's Protection Unit in Rojava, meaning West of Kurdistan. There was an interview done with Jordan Matson, who's an army vet who actually joined them. There are, I believe, 5 American vets right now currently fighting alongside Kurdish fighters, YPG units, in Kurdistan of Syria. And during that interview, which was conducted by BBC, I heard that the State Department does not count it as illegal or against U.S. law for Americans to join the YPG fighters. And here's the dilemma. We have right now, there are few instances in history that you can so easily see what's right and what's wrong. And right now, Kurdish resistance against ISIS is the right and just cause to join, and it's a humanitarian cause. That's why we see people actually joining them. And talking about Dutch, there is actually, Dutch government has declared that anyone that joins YPG fighters in Kurdistan is free to do so. It's not against their law. And I think, again, from that interview, what I took from it was that State Department doesn't count it as illegal for Americans to go join the YPG fighters. And yes, I think we take it upon all of ourselves. Humanity is in peril. This is the fight between good and bad. So looks like bad is recruiting psychopaths and killers and rapists and pedophiles. So the good side should be allowed to get recruitment as well from people who love freedom and honor humanity and want to be behind the just cause that stands for democracy and freedom and equality in Middle East.
And we also wanted to ask another question. How do you see the Kurdish state and the Kurdish struggle 10 or 20 years from now?
10, I think it's too short. Let's say 20. I'm thinking in 20 years, we are going to have a united Kurdistan, which is made of all the 4 occupied territories by Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. And it would be a secular, democratic country, which would be welcoming all ethnicities and religious affiliations within its borders, and it will be a beacon for humanity and freedom and hope in the region. So it would be wishful thinking, but that's what I see. And the only reason for it is because actually West and Europe are realizing that Kurds deserve their support because we're pro-democracy.
So for those George Mason students among our listeners, what can they do to help?
What I need is signatures. I understand we cannot all go join our YPG fighters. Again, half of whom are women. I have a 4-year-old that needs me constantly. But what we can do here is by petitions. I have a petition signing through the 28th. If I could have any of you that feel compelled in this humanitarian disaster to come and put your signature on it, we can start by petitions that I have. And also we're thinking of having fundraising and also a blanket drive. We actually have a website, Kurdish Student Association, actually Kurdish Student Organization on Facebook. If you could look that up, we will have updates on it. Again, it's Kurdish Student Organization on Facebook, and we will have updates on it regarding fundraisings and drives for warm winter clothing.
And I'll put a link to that website in the description below the video so everyone can go directly to it. I just had one other question before we close up. How does this movement influence other national movements in other parts of the world? The only thing that comes to mind right now is the Tibetan movement, the Free Tibetan from Chinese rule. Do you think this will bring awareness to other freedom movements across the world?
Beautiful, you brought that up. One of my signees was from Tibet, and he was emphasizing that you are giving us hope, that we can actually, by not giving up on our hope of having our own homeland, we can get global awareness and get people rally behind us. So I can see this as being a good thing to give hope to other nationalities that are sleeping with the dreams of having their own homeland and having their own flag. And not just that, I think it gives hope to the rest of the region, especially in the Middle East, that yes, democratic nations can rise up and will win, instead of giving into fear and running away from movements, extreme movements like Islamic State. So I think it's giving hope.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem. And, we like to do this kind of stuff. We like to have guests on, and we like to, these kind of stories you don't hear about a whole lot, especially on more liberal college campuses. And I think it's really important that we get this information out, and as quickly as possible. And I think, U.S. foreign policy has been kind of shaky in the last 8 years, and the State Department's kind of not done the greatest job. But I think the one good thing that is going on right now is that the United States government and the people support the Kurdish independence movement. So again, we want to thank you for being on the show, and hopefully we'll work together soon.
Would love it. Appreciate it. My pleasure.